go. Hello. There we go. I think that is better. Maybe not. All right, hello, and thanks for joining us tonight. If you have not joined us before, then my name is Lindsay, and this is my husband Jess, and we are here every Tuesday at 7:30 to answer questions that are sent in by you guys. So when you're here and you're watching, if you can drop a comment or something to let us know that you're watching, then that would be great. We would love to say hi and see who's watching. If you have questions as we go along, then you can leave them in the comments. If we see them while we're live, then we will make sure we answer them. If we don't, then we'll get to them right away afterwards. And tonight, what we're talking about is custom saddles. So we have just become the Eastern Canadian dealer for Bob's Custom Saddles, which we're really excited about. And you can now order a saddle through us if you like, but we wanted to just get on and talk a little bit about why you would order a custom saddle, what it means to have a custom saddle, and then answer some of the questions that that we get quite a lot. So it looks like some of you guys are on. Hi from Kenora. Hi Glenda. Hi Kim. Hi Monique. Great. Awesome. Ernie and Jeanette Wilson are watching. Glenda has a Bob's. Great. Okay, awesome. It's nice to see you guys. Okay, so the first part is what does it mean to order a custom saddle? What even does that mean? Do you want to start with that? What does it mean to order a custom saddle, and why would you order one?
Because it's a really cool play toy to have.
It is, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think where it starts is that we want to have the best possible fit of saddle for ourselves and for our horses. And just like, you know, competitive athletes have a certain set of golf clubs that are kind of tailored to them. Tennis racket, you know, whatever, anything like that. It's no different for us. The thing for us is that we're trying to fit two individuals, right? We're trying to fit the horse and we're trying to fit the rider. So it's more challenging to find a piece of equipment that will fit both for the things that we want to do than it is to try to fit one. And so a lot of times that means going to a custom saddle where we can pick exactly what's going to fit the horse and then also tailor it to the rider. So with a custom saddle, what you're getting is custom. With Bob's is custom absolutely everything. You're getting right down to the bare bones of the saddle, the tree, you know, all the riggings, and the fender length is a common question that we get, but everything is absolutely custom to what you want to order, basically. Do you have anything that you want to add to that? Why people would buy a custom saddle?
Well, I think it's just a luxury of being able to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, they're maybe not for everybody. We acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. When you start buying stuff that are options, they're not cheap. Mm-hmm. You get what you pay for. There's a lot of saddle companies out there who, you know, they can put custom whatever on the side, and we see it on Facebook for sale, you know, such and such custom saddle. They're all different. Basically, if you're ordering a custom saddle, you have something in mind you want. You know, you're not going to buy a bunch of them. You want one. It's your saddle that you're going to use. I think the first part, kind of getting back to the Bob's thing, the reason we went with Bob's, I've rode in them for years. You know, they put up with me, they last, they're good, strong saddles. They're a good company to deal with. They've been around for a long time, and they cater to the type of saddles that we, you know, the reiners, the cow horses, the ranch riding. They cater to our kind of horses, our kind of saddles. So when we say, we have bred this certain way, they have a certain type back through, the genetics tell them a little bit how they're supposed to be built. They know what we're talking about. There's lots of good makers of different kind of saddles, but for our reiners and the cow horses and the ranch riders, they've been around that group of people for years. So that's why we really like those saddles. I've rode them I had my first bobs when I was 18, and I don't know that I've ever not had, and I have lots of different types of saddles. I mean, we'll buy and sell some used ones. So, I have lots of different kinds that I ride in, because I just ride in whatever I buy and sell. But the main one is the bobs. They have a great resale value. They hold up. Earlier on here, you mentioned about Ernie and Jeanette Wilson. They fix a lot of fenders and stuff for me. I go through them, and cheap saddles don't last for me. I have to replace the under fenders because we wear them out, but for a lot of people, they're also not going to wear them out like I do. But they last. They're a good saddle, and that's why we have a little saying here. We sell what we use.
Yeah.
So anyways, getting back to, if you're going to order a custom saddle, what you need to know. Do you want to go with that one?
What you need to know?
What would you, if you were ordering a custom saddle, what would your questions be, and what would you want?
Well, my questions would be kind of similar to the questions that were asked, that we have lined up from people that have asked them. But
okay, let's start with that.
How do I know it's going to fit my horse? How do I know that it's going to fit me? And how do I even go about picking all of the options, because there are so many options? Those would be my questions, I guess. So let's start with, why don't we start with these questions, and then should we get into those afterwards?
Sounds good.
My questions afterwards, or your questions afterwards? So the first question that we had sent in was, I have short legs, can I get short fenders? And the answer to that is yes. And the way it works with bobs is that if you have a saddle that you're riding in and you like the fenders on that saddle, you can send in that measurement. But what they normally do, and what I have now a spreadsheet of, is depending on what your inseam is, that's how we determine how long to make the fenders. So you don't have to worry about taking measurements of anything. You just have to know what your inseam is from crotch to ground, and then we can figure out the length of the stirrups from there. And one of the things that I didn't know, that I didn't know before, we got into all this, that I thought was really interesting, was that you're supposed to be, when you adjust your stirrups, you're supposed to be in the middle of the holes. I feel like in a lot of our saddles, I'm always at the top. A lot of the saddles that I was riding in before I was riding in the better quality saddles, I was always riding at the bottom. So you're actually, your hole that you adjust your stirrups to is actually supposed to be about in the middle. So they'll take your measurement, they'll create that fender, and they'll make sure that the fender is fitting you properly.
I think one thing too, when people ask about the short fenders that usually come into play for the shorter legged people, isn't just the fender.
There's so much more than that,
is the type of rigging, meaning like where your D-rings attached to the saddle. There's a couple different riggings on them. Cutouts underneath the saddles. There's so many other things that can play into making that fat saddle feel a little less bulky for a really short-legged rider. Here with us doing a lot of lessons, we definitely have a broad spectrum of leg lengths. So there's more than just the fender, how short it is, and those are some of the things. When people come here and look at stuff, we can look at saddles. We can go over and talk about, go from there. So it's not just the fenders, but they'll definitely make you the size that fit your leg, big or small. Mm-hmm. They will make oversized ones, and they will make really short ones.
Okay, and then the second question was, how do I know if it'll fit my horse?
So there's multiple different trees. The common one that we see, like on the internet when people advertise saddles, is everybody talks about gullet whip. And if you have a saddle and you're measuring it, you have no idea. Unless you strip it down to the tree, you have no idea what they're. You'll have a rough estimate, but I've seen people measure them really up high, really up low. People have no idea when they take that measurement. So unless you know what that measurement was on the tree, you're not gonna know. Now for the bobses, and what we tell everybody is we always have 8 to 10 used ones around here of every different, not every different style, but of the different styles. Because when I'm at horse shows or just when I go on Facebook, that's all I look for is used saddles for sale. I like the different styles so that when somebody comes in and says this is the kind of horse we have or this is the back it has on there, we can say, okay, try this style, see if it worked, ride in it, see if you like it. So instead of just buying one and saying I need this width or whatever, there's so many more parts to that to whether or not it fits your horse. How the bars of those trees sit on that back is so important. It's not just the very front as everybody thinks it is. So, there's multiple different trees to fit the horses, as well as, some people like big tall front ends, some people like big tall seats, and the same with the people. Widths, heights, all those different things. So what we tell everybody is, you can have everything down on paper. It either works or it doesn't. Your best bet is to ride in a whole bunch of them. We've had a few people just in the last little while bring their horse here, and they ride in a bunch of different saddles. It's kind of comical. They just, lope some circles, yay or nay it, get the next one, put the next one on, lope around in it. Because until you feel one, what's on paper doesn't matter. It has to make sense to you. And then I think a big one that I always see too is everybody tells me they want this kind of saddle, and then they ride in a bunch of different ones. And not always, but sometimes people will say, well, geez, I didn't even think about, maybe a little lower front end or, whatever. So the more you can ride in, they're not cheap saddles, so you better have the most educated opinion you can have about what you like, what you want, trees, riggings, seats, like all the different, like double padded, single padded, hard seats, all those different options, so that when you get it, you're going to fit your horse. And I'm only speaking about bobses because that's what we know most about. Is there's a serial number on every one of them. So when somebody says this is the one we like, what we usually do is we just take that serial number, and then when they start to order it, we start off with that serial number so we get the same trees to what they fit their horse and what they like.
Same tree and same seat, and then build the options on there.
Those are the bread and butter ones, is getting that same seat and tree. The rest is just decoration, and it's, makes it look pretty and makes it your saddle. But you get the same tree and seat that you want, and then you can go from there.
Right, so if you've ridden in one that you like, you can literally just lift it up, have a look at the serial number, and then you can send it to us and we can figure out what it is. But you can also send it directly to Bob's, and they can tell you all of the specs on that saddle. If there's something that you like about it that you want to recreate, you can send those specs in, and you can find out what they all are, find out what tree that is, what seat it is, everything. There's like 40 some options on there on each one. Okay, so the next question was horses are fresh tonight. It's cool. Can I order a saddle that will work for reining and cow horse? Do you want to take that question?
So yes, you can. Lots of people ride the reiners, the cow horses, the ranch riders, and other disciplines too, Western dressage, you name it, in those saddles. It's a matter of knowing which styles you like. So one of my favorite saddles, it has a little taller front end than most reining saddles. So it works well for the cow horses, and it's still good looking enough. I do it on the ranch, and you can do it in whatever. You can have a saddle that fits both, and again, it's a matter of getting in a bunch of those saddles and figuring out what you like. If somebody really goes specific to one discipline, then there's some things that you'll want to stay that side of it. The cow horses like a little taller front ends, maybe a little bigger horns. Reiners, we try to keep them a little more down. But what I say is, like, for the saddles that I like them halfway in between. I actually like a reining saddle that has a little bit of a front end on them. And I don't like the cow horses that are really tall on the front end. I've ripped more buttons off my shirts than I care to imagine doing rollbacks and when those things suck back on a cow. So for me, I like those halfway in between ones. And the biggest thing with that is, again, getting in a saddle that you feel comfortable with. And for those type of riders, things that really play a big part of it is cutouts. I feel like the cow horse people especially, we like them to be a little closer to their backs. We like a lot of cutouts. So you take a cutout with maybe just a medium front end that's a little higher than the reiners, it works good for both. And then obviously the only thing that we really worry about in the ranch riding, it has to be comfortable. You have to like it. And we just make sure there's no silver. Maybe the reiners like a little more silver as a style, but you don't need it. Lots of people show without it, but in the ranch riding, you don't want the silver, so you just make sure you don't do that. And you can do multiple events in every saddle, as long as you're not stuck on one.
Okay, so that answered the questions. You said what were the questions that I would have? What were the things that I would need to know if I was going to order one? How do I know it's going to fit me, and how do I know it's going to fit my horse? I mean, you got to try them. You got to try a whole bunch of saddles. And you got to know what it is that you want, basically, before you order one, right? And what was the other thing that I said? Oh, how do I even go about picking options? Because there are so many options. And I think probably the best answer to that is to get online, get on the Bob's Custom Saddle website, and go to the custom options section. And most of the ones that are on the build sheets are on there. So all the conchos, the tooling, the riggings, the seat, a lot of them are on there where you can see them. The other thing, as far as style, I think the easiest thing to do as far as the style and choosing like the color of the leather and the tooling and all that kind of stuff, combination of conchos and D-rings and all that stuff, is actually to look around. Maybe even on Bob's has a great Instagram page, or if you just type into Google Bob's Custom Saddles, you can find a whole bunch of saddles that you can choose from, and you can kind of combine options from a couple different saddles, or you can say that you like one of these, but you really liked the conchos that you saw in the custom options section. And start to put together a few. You're not going to select all 40 of those things all at once, but kind of select the things that you like, and then we can help you put together the rest of it. Like the custom thread. The thread, you can choose whether you have a white thread, whether you have a black thread, whether you have a natural thread, which is probably something that most people wouldn't think about a whole lot, but once we kind of know the other options that you like, then we can provide some guidance, or we can show you some options for what that would look like either way for you to make that decision yourself.
I think one thing too, it's great to look at the Bob site themselves because they have all the options. Another one, if you're really looking at saddles, we do it all the time. Me and Lindsay will send pictures back and forth all the time of we see a used saddle.
Yeah.
So it has a little age on it.
Yeah.
And some of them, what they look like used, to me is more important because that's what we're going to do. We're going to use them.
I think they look nicer used. I like the look of the used saddle.
I think anything, any saddles look better. You look at them used, and like I'll just Google in used Bob's custom saddles and stuff like that, and get an idea of which ones you like the looks of on those pages also, not just the new ones, but the used ones. And sometimes you can find some really neat combinations that you know, if you're going to order one of these saddles, you want to have a big group to have picked from, you know, so that you can see all the different silvers and stuff. One thing that you didn't bring up, and I'm surprised. I mean, if I was going to buy a saddle, I want to know the pretty stuff. I want to know the tooling patterns and the silver. That's more important to me.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, what things would you need to know before you ordered one?
Because if you look at all my work saddles, it's all
You're
about
really
being pretty.
concerned about tooling and silver. Yep.
And there's other options too. So I mean, silver, depending on how much you like. You know, I mean, you can go anything from reasonably priced nickels right up to really fancy silvers. There is some really fancy, and I don't like silver a lot of silver on my saddles, but I really like very classy. I like very expensive silver. But then you have to know the discipline you're going to ride too. You know, the cow horses, the ranch riders are definitely away from the silver. You don't see much in there anymore. You know, there's still going to be the conchos on it, but you might not have corner plates and stuff, cantle pieces. And the other one that I think for me is what kind of oils you want on them. You know, if I'm going to ride in one all day long, you know, I don't want one that's really heavily oiled where my legs go. And then somebody who's maybe wanting a little more grip, I feel like they like those really heavy oiled fenders. And there's so many options of that kind of stuff. You know, and then the same with tooling patterns. I know lots of people that, you know, just smooth fenders is the way to go. And then other people like them tooled. It gives them a better feel for it. And, you know, and that's the neat thing about when you custom order these saddles. When you go through that list, it's like Christmas. I mean, you just shop and there's all the different options, and they're neat. I mean, you know, you get to personalize them.
Oh yeah,
We seen one the other day where there was a signature on some silver.
That. Yeah. It was like the grandfather. What did it say? Love Grandpa Ben or something. It was his handwriting that was put into the Latigo silver.
And I've seen custom silvers on the corner plates.
Yep.
With people's names and stuff on them, and of course I like brands on saddles, so those are always neat.
Yeah, we have one. We have a custom headstall ordered with somebody's brand on it. That's gonna look really cool up on the buckle set.
So I mean, those are always neat things to look at. You know, you get the base seat and the tree and how that all sits, and then you can go from there. And then the neat thing, like you just said with the buckle sets, it's not just the saddles either, because once you're done, there's breast collars and
head stalls,
show head stalls and all that kind of stuff. And there's a definite difference in those kind of saddles. I mean, over the years, I've tried, I think, just about every kind of saddle there is. And, you know, they last, you know, so you buy a good one and they last.
That's huge. Like that show saddle, well, the saddle that I ride in and the show saddle, they're like, what are they, 95 and 98? We looked them up the other day.
Something like
One
that.
of them's a 2006, that one show saddle's a 2006, and they're in amazing condition.
They definitely last, and if they'll last
Yeah.
for me, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I've
And
heard-
even the style-wise too, right? Like you don't want to pick something that's, you know, maybe super trendy. I feel like that saddle that you and I really like that we fight over, it was designed and made up in 2006.
Yeah, if you're gonna buy a
Kinda
good one, buy one
timeless.
that's
They're really
gonna
timeless.
last.
Yeah. All right, so we answered some questions about custom saddles and options. We'll just see if we missed any questions in here. If you have a question, you can answer it. You can ask it now, and we'll try to answer it. I think I saw one back here somewhere. Just bought a Bob's Randy Paul. Haven't ridden any yet. Would you say a Randy Paul seat is made more for a man in comparison to a McQuay or a Lady Rayner?
Sure, a ladies' reiner is exactly how it's said. It's
Just getting back to riding since injury and feel like I should stick with my Continental as I know that saddle. Would you say the Randy Paul seat is made more for a man in comparison to a McQuay or a Lady Rayner? So, do you want to answer that?
well, the Randy Pauls, which are the same trees as the Bob Avalas, are definitely made for a man. Now you like the Avalas,
I like the wider saddles, yeah.
and but you're fairly long-legged
I'm not
too.
a man.
You're not a man. But she's fairly long-legged. There's definitely the McQuays. I mean, you can just look at Tim McQuay. I mean, there's no arguing. He's not a very tall man. He has shorter legs, and the saddles that he helped design fit that build. The same with the ladies' reiner. They've narrowed them up just a little bit to make it more comfortable for a lady.
And there's one more that's narrow, and that's the KR. KR Rayner is also
Right, which is
narrow.
very similar, yeah.
Yeah.
So and again, there's another part of it is, some of them are more narrow, some flatter seats, all the different things that make it fit a person's body type. If you're 6'2", and really long-legged, you just look at some of the styles that other people are riding in. Like I always say, just look at the trainers that designed that saddle with Bob's. If they're 6'2" and long-legged, there's a good chance it's going to work a little better for you, than let's say a McQuay or a ladies' reiner. So that kind of helps a little bit when you get in there. The McQuays are a very, they're stripped down through the sides, which is really nice. The fenders are cut up by the stirrup hobbles, which is really nice for a shorter-legged person. So that really works well.
And you said about the skirts are cut up. Did you say that?
Yep.
I didn't hear that, yeah.
So talk about stirrup options.
Talk about stirrup options, and somebody had a question about custom skirt length as well. Do you want to talk about stirrup options?
I'll do the stirrup.
Right.
What do you want? That's the thing. When we order saddles, we also deal nettle stirrups.
Yeah.
You can get stirrups from Bob's, which are leather laced, nettles also. You can get anything on them. And I think that's the big thing.
You can get them with designs burnt into the side. You can get a leather patch on the side. You can get silver on the side. You can get any width. You can get them with call it a leveler, which levels the bottom part for your foot so your ankle's not twisted at all.
Right. So this one says wider
Light,
on the
dark,
bottom. I'm not
whatever kind
quite
of
sure what
finish.
you're getting at, Gail.
Every different kind of wood.
I have a very wide foot. So I get what's called an oversized stirrup, which is wider, and then I get them more depth too, so it's really a flat surface that I'm sitting on, or I'm standing on. That's a personal preference. So again, if you're going to order a pair, or you're going to order a saddle, you're going to want to know what kind of stirrups you like on there, so that you get what's comfortable for you. We do the same thing all the time. As I'll tell people, if you're not sure about what kind of nettles to buy, ride in a bunch of mine. Mm-hmm. See which type, because I have some 2-inchers, I have some 3-inchers, I have some oversized, I have a bunch of different things on all different saddles. So you can pick and choose to what you find the most comfortable. Some people, if they have when we get kids riding here, or ladies with really small feet, they're not comfortable in my big stirrups. I have a triple E wide feet, and I fill a stirrup up pretty fast, so I like a really wide, flat stirrup. Little kid, they make them small, just, it's like everything. You're going to customize them to fit your width of your foot, and they make all those different options in the widths. And you can get silver stirrups, you name it, they'll make it.
I think, though, generally, the benefit to the Nettles stirrup specifically is that they're more comfortable.
I can walk after.
Yeah, it's more comfortable on the joints. I don't know how it is that it works, but ankles, knees, hips, and pretty well everybody that rides in them agrees that, and it's even more comfortable for mounting, you know, for people when they're mounting the horse to have a wider surface to step onto. They're just more comfortable. So if you suffer from any kind of pain, any kind of joint pain, then having making that little bit of an investment into a set of Nettle stirrups, figuring out what width you like Jesse said, but that can make a big difference. Like you said, you can walk afterwards.
I notice a huge difference.
I mean, it's the same thing we talked about before, right? We sell what we use, and we have Nettles stirrups on all of the work saddles now.
Anything I
and
ride
the
in,
show saddles.
I can't.
And Gail, you know, Jesse doesn't spend his money unless he really feels strongly about it. So
Easy
you know. Christina says, I have a wide shoulder, mutton withered, short box, downhill, 14-1 hand quarter horse for ranch classes. Any suggestions? I like that. Yeah, we got a few of those around here too. Wide shoulder, mutton withered, short box, downhill, 14-1 hand quarter horse for ranch classes. What one do you like the best for horses? Wide shoulder and no withers?
I feel like a lot of people like it if they raise them front ends up about 1/4 of an inch. So you are not going to change how your horse is built. Like a lot of people say, oh, I want my saddle to fit it. Your horse is built the way it is. So the only thing you can do, put a little bigger front end on that saddle, lift yourself back up there just a little bit, keep your back end down. A lot of them, like the old Dunning cow horse saddles were that way. I always like those on those ones. There was a few that fit into that category.
That Buster Welch tree is kind of a
one thing I can tell you
good
for
one
a
for staying on.
mutton withered horse, which is not the Bob's Custom Saddles, now just an advertisement for what we sell, but get into those one pads with the neoprene.
Here we go.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just getting
Yeah,
an
just
advertisement.
plug. Yeah.
But again, it's what we ride in.
Yeah.
I ride a lot of 2-year-olds. They don't have the developed withers yet. A lot of people bring 2-year-olds in. They're too fat. They have no withers. Plus, they're kind of fat. And I want to stay on those things. So if them horses are kind of moving around the round pen a little funny, I like to stick to them. And then I don't have to cinch them up as hard.
And that's what happens with the one pad with the neoprene on the inside. It creates a little bit of suction, a little bit of heat, and then you don't have to do your saddle up as tight, and it sticks. Like when you pull your saddle off, that pad is stuck on there.
But there's a few trees and like Bob's is getting back to the saddles.
Yeah.
Like I say, that kind of raise you up that little bit. The cow horses, that's a feel that they want. There's nothing worse than going down the fence on a cow and you feel like you're dumped over and downhill. So you can get maybe a cow horse. In the ranch horse classes, I know there's nothing worse than you have a big cow horse horn or a cutting horn in front of you. So you get a built up front end, but then you just keep your horn real short. So you can still clear it left and right with your hand, but you're sitting just that little bit underneath there, just a little more. Sorry, Christine, I don't know where you live, but if you're close to us, I could show you what you mean with your horse.
That looks like, I think, the same question. Why are some of the skirts so long? I've seen them 29 inches long when the majority of the horses have short backs.
One word in there is wrong. So you can't say the majority of the horses have short backs. Years ago in the cutters, when the cutters were they were breeding a lot of cutting horses into the reiners, there was a lot of short-backed horses. Now Nowadays, they figured out that that wasn't the best way to go to keep them sound. So they're getting back to a regular back on a horse. From going to sales and yearling sales and looking at a whack of horses, you don't see a lot of those really short backs like you used to see in the, I'm going to say about the early 90s maybe. There was a lot of those, a lot of cutting influences.
I think a lot of times the question is, why are the saddles so big and the horses are so small? Sorry, go ahead and you answer.
Oh no, that's all I had.
Yeah, I think, well, the other question that is related to this one was, can you get a shorter skirt length? And you can. So like Kelly said, why are some of them 29 inches long? They can come as long as 29 inches. A reining saddle from Bob's, you can get cut down to 27 and a half inches long. And if you need it to be shorter than that, then you're looking at a different style of saddle, not a reining saddle. But I think it does look funny. It's kind of a funny appearance when you see, especially if you're from the English world or you ride barrel horses where you see a smaller saddle on a bigger horse. It looks funny to see such a big saddle on a small horse. But if you think about the horse's anatomy and you think about those long muscles that run on either side of the spine, so if you're not familiar with those, on either side of the horse's spine from the withers right back up to the hip, there's two long muscles, excuse me, which are really affected by saddle fit and by the rider. And the more you can distribute the weight out across those muscles, so all the way across, not just ending part way, the less you're going to have where the horse has knots and tension and issues right in the middle of that muscle. So the more you can spread out that weight, distribute the weight of the rider and the saddle across those muscles, the better. So I would imagine that's part of it. Those horses are working hard. They're rounding up their backs. You know, it's usually bigger people riding smaller horses. Distributing that weight across is actually meant to help the horses as well as help the riders to be able to find the center of gravity, whether the horse is curling up in a ball in a stop or spinning or running circles. That's a good question, because it is kind of a weird thing if you're not used to it, seeing such a big long saddle on a small horse. Somebody from Toledo, oh that's Christina from Toledo, running into that too short backed. So I feel like if you have a horse that you think is too short backed, are you getting marks, or is your saddle actually hitting the hips and creating marks on it, or does the saddle just look a little bit too long? You know what I'm saying? The saddle can be too long for a horse's back. That is possible, but I feel like most of the time it's just that the people are worried about it because they're used to looking at a barrel saddle or even a Western saddle, even sometimes a reining saddle that's smaller, that's more compact.
And the reining saddles years ago were shorter. I mean, they used to have the single skirts.
Yeah.
You know, the old Price McLaughlins and Claibornes, you know, they were famous for those single skirts. You know, it's the tree that's the biggest part as to how long they are.
It's not just running into the hip. I'm not sure quite what that means.
Christina, do me a favor one time. Send me a picture. I'm curious to see it.
Yeah, send us a picture.
You know, it's hard to just talk about it when we can't see it. Send it right to me or to Lindsay, whichever one of us. But send us a picture, and send me two pictures. One with no saddle pad underneath it, and the other one with your saddle pad where you would normally just be riding in it. I'd just be curious to see where it's sitting and how it is on your horse. You know, and we can kind of have a better discussion of it from there. You know, when I can see what we're talking about.
Good. Awesome. So I think we can maybe finish up here unless anybody has any last minute questions. Thanks for being on here with us, you guys, and asking good questions and jumping on from all over the place. Gail, I hope that answered your question about stirrups. If you have more questions, just let us know, because I have, we have a whole bunch of them here that I can take pictures and send you as well. Okay, thanks you guys. Thanks for being on. We will be here next week on Tuesday at 7:30 to answer more questions. If you have questions, you can send them to hayescofelph@gmail.com. You can hook up with us on Facebook. We're at Hayes Cofell Performance Horses on Facebook. We are at Hayes_Cofell_Performance Horses on Instagram. And we would love to connect with you one way or the other.
Do you know what the question is for next week?
No, I forgot.
Okay.
Do you?
No.
No.
Can I have a public service announcement about shoeing horses next week?
Okay.
All right. Great.
Another public service announcement?
Yep.
What is it this time?
How to hold your horses while the farrier's working on it.
Okay.
We're going to do that next
That-
time.
We're going to do that next time? No, we already have a question lined up for next week. And we already have a question for the week after. But you want to put that in? You want to make
Right now?
a Just Cofell public service announcement?
Right now?
No, let's add that.
Oh.
You want to add that in? You want
Next
to tell
week?
people?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It might be a bit of a rant,
All
but
right.
yes, I'm going to put it in.
We're adding in a rant by Jess for next week. Look forward to that.
We should do that every one of these, have a public service announcement.
Okay.
All right. It's on next week.
We're doing it. Look forward to it.
I'm going to name names while I do it, too.
Oh my gosh. We're shutting this down. Good night, you guys.
Have a good one.